Now it's time to look at RStudio. We're going to become very familiar with RStudio this semester because this is where we will do our work. RStudio is considered an integrated development environment, or IDE, for working with R. That means that it is integrating many of the different development aspects of creating a project and creating scripts so that we don't have to use separate programs for different types of tasks. We can do it all within the RStudio environment. Now, I'm assuming in this video that if you are here, you have already worked through the introductory assignment, which includes installing R, installing RStudio, learning about CSV files, learning how to create projects, and so forth. So I'm not going to go into detail with such steps as how to create a project, although you will see me create one here. If you have not yet gone through those videos or have not been in a previous course with me when you've gone through those videos, you're going to need to stop this video now and go back through all your assignments in order until you get back to this video. Okay? All right. So, assuming you've already done that, let's move on. Now, the first thing I want to tell you as you look at my RStudio and you look at your RStudio, which you should have loaded up as well so you can follow along with me, is you're going to think, these do not look the same. What I am seeing looks different. Yes, that's because I have already tweaked my RStudio, and I'm going to show you how to tweak yours. You do not need to tweak it to be like mine. In fact, you can leave all the defaults the way they are if you want. But if you do want to tweak it, you should do it to meet your needs. Now, right now, you may not know how to tweak it to meet your needs because you've not been working much with RStudio, if at all. As you get to use it more and more, there are things that are going to become apparent to you that you'd rather have, for instance, in a different position in the RStudio environment. And so what I'm going to show you now, you may not use at this point, but later on, you'll know how to do it when you want to. There's a part of me that thought I should go back and reload RStudio from scratch and set it up the way it is to begin with in defaults, but quite frankly, I do not want to have to go through and make all the tweaks that I've made. So instead, just recognize that your RStudio may look different than mine, but I will show you how to change anything that you want to change to make it look like mine, or more importantly, to make it look the way you want. Okay, so with that little preamble, let's get started. Well, the first thing we see as we're looking on an overview here is that there are 4 panes in RStudio. There's this one, this one, this one, and this one. Yours may be in different locations again than mine, but we all have the same 4 panes. If you're only seeing 3 panes, it might be because one of them's collapsed like this. So you can collapse, on collapse, you can maximize it within the size. That one side of RStudio, you can do this on both sides. So get it to a position where you can see all 4 panes, and then let's talk about those panes. Let me start up here in the top right, because that should look familiar to you. That is R running in the top right pane. It may be in a different position on yours. It may be the top left pane. But I have it over here, and this is the same thing we saw in the previous video when we looked at R, except it is contained in one pane. So you already know the primary purpose of this pane. It is the R console. This is really the heart of the operation. This is where we will communicate with R. I'll go through the additional tabs in a little bit, but let's look at the primary functions of each pane first. This pane over in my top left, again it may be in a different place in yours, this pane is where we will write our scripts. Right now there's nothing written, but let's go ahead and do our My World script over again. This time we'll do it within RStudio. So the My World script, I believe it started with my variable, and then we set it to hello world, and then we print it my variable. Now, something just happened there. Let me do this again to see if you saw it. There are so many features with RStudio and this integrated development environment that you don't get in R. When I started to print here my variable, what happened is R looked at what I already had in my script, and it guessed that something I might be typing in here is what I've previously set as an object called my variable. So if I want, I could simply tab to that and put it in without finishing the typing. Alternatively, let me do it again. Alternatively, I could actually click on it and it would put it in. Although note, it doesn't put in that final parentheses. When I did it the first time by tabbing, oh, I guess it didn't put in the parentheses then either. My bad. Okay, so either way, it gives you the same thing. So print, back up, print. Ah, that's why the parentheses were there the first time. Yes. So there's another RStudio feature. I put in one parentheses and it knows that I'm going to need a closing parentheses. So without me typing, it typed it in. Now my variable, and I can either click on my variable or I can hit tab to put that in. So there is our script. Now, what I've done at this point is bad news. Why? Do you know? It's because the very first thing I do before I start creating any scripts should be to create a project. So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard, erase it, and I'm going to start over by creating a project. So let me create a project. You should know how to do this from watching previous videos. I'm going to click on File, New Project. I'm going to establish a new directory. For my new project, it's going to be in my R Projects folder. I've used that in the past. Now, if I wanted to browse to a different folder, I could do it right here. But since I set it up in the past as R Projects, I'm going to go ahead and have R Projects in already as a default for me here. So once you start to create projects in a folder, then it's going to automatically provide you an option to leave that as your projects folder. I'm going to call this My First Project. Okay, so now I have R, and now I have my first project open. How do I know? Everything looks the same, right? Well, almost. Look right up here in the upper right. My first project is right here. This little arrow would allow me to create a new project. It would allow me to open an existing project. To open an existing project in a new session, meaning that I could have two RStudios running at once, to close a project, or to open one of my previous projects, and it gives me a list of my previous projects. This will be populated for you as you move forward. It also gives me the opportunity to select options for the project. I usually use what are called global options, and I'm going to show you those later. But if you wanted to set separate options for each project, so each project works differently, you could do that. I don't see very many reasons to do that because we like consistency in our lives. So what I do is I set all my options globally, which means that it's going to work for all projects. But you can do a by project option if you wish. Okay, so my project is here. Now let me go back and create that script. So I'm just going to paste in what I already had. And now I'm going to save it. And when I save it, it will automatically be saved in the My First Project folder. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to call it Hello World. And now I have helloworld.r saved. If I click on that closed, then it is no longer here in my script window. Now where is it gone? Well, it is in the folder. I could open my File Explorer, or if you're on Macintosh, you could open your Finder window. But I don't have to do that because there is also a pane that has a tab called Files. Now your tabs might even be in different locations than mine because I've changed some of mine. I'll show you how to do that as well here in a moment. But find your Files tab and click on it, and you should see two different files. One of them is the script Hello World, and the other one is the R project file. If I went to that R project file when RStudio wasn't open and clicked on it, it would open up into RStudio and already be at the project. Very much like if you have a Microsoft Word file with the extension docx, D-O-C-X, and you click on it, it will open Word and load the file in. This would open RStudio and load the project in. I don't need to do that now because the project's already open, but I am going to click on the Hello World script to show you that it puts it right back here in the window. In fact, it created another tab. So notice we can have multiple scripts going at the same time. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this code. If you notice, there's a Run button that runs one line at a time. So if I run, it will run the first line and load in Hello World into my variable. Remember when we talked about workspaces before? Well, the workspace here is included in what is called an environment. If I click on the Environment tab, there you see, without having to do the ls function to see all the objects, you can see it right here in your environment. Now if I click on the Run again, it will print Hello World, which was the whole point of this, is we want it to say hello to the world as new R programmers. So I have my environment, has my variable in it, and my script up here has been saved. Now the fact that my script has been saved, that means that if I were to clear out my environment, in essence lose my workspace, and I can do that by clicking on this little broom, and it asks, are you sure you want to remove all objects from the environment? I'm going to say yes, and I'm okay with that, because all I have to do is run the Hello World again, and it will be loaded into the environment. This time, I want to run everything at once. I can do that by going up to Code and coming down here to run a region, and the region I want to run is All. Notice that it tells me a keyboard shortcut. And so if I want to memorize that shortcut, I won't have to pull down the menu option. I can click Control, hold down Alt, and hit R, and then it will run the whole region. So I'm going to click Run All. Notice that it ran everything. It printed Hello World, and in the environment, we see that I have Hello World here. Okay, let me stop with part 1, and I'll see you again in part 2.